The lip gloss was almost gone.
You're
Rue
gonna make me go
Calloway,
back.
13 years old, 67 pounds, stood in a Georgia restaurant bathroom and dragged the last of the pale pink across the mirror in letters she hoped someone would see before staff wiped them away. Help. 523 Quarry Bend Drive. Foster kid. She'd tried the system 3 times. 3 times they'd sent her back. Now she had 9 minutes before her foster father arrived to take her home. 9 minutes to try one more thing. She walked 34 feet across the restaurant floor, scuff drag, left foot broken and untreated, to a corner booth where a man in a Hells Angels patch sat eating alone. She didn't know his name. She didn't know 191 bikers were already on their way. What happened in the next 16 minutes would expose a fraud scheme, a child who died in care, and a system that failed them both. If you believe every child deserves someone who answers, subscribe and drop your city below. Now, back to that bathroom mirror. Please, they're gonna make me go back. The words came out quiet, not a whisper, quiet in the way of someone who'd learned that being heard led to consequences. Boone, Copperhead, didn't look up right away. He was mid-bite, chicken-fried steak cooling on the plate in front of him, a copy of the Rockdale Citizen folded beside his sweet tea. Corner booth. Back to the wall. Face to the room. He'd chosen this table the way he chose every table. But he heard her. More specifically, he heard the sound that came before the words. A soft scuff drag. Left foot. Every step. The rhythm of someone walking on an injury they couldn't treat. He set his fork down, folded the newspaper, turned his full body to face her. 13. Maybe younger. The kind of thin that doesn't happen from missing a few meals. The kind that happens over months. Her left cheek had a yellow-green bruise, 9 days old if he had to guess, partially hidden by hair that fell forward when she looked down. Both elbows of her shirt were worn thin enough to see skin through the fabric. And her eyes. Brown. Oversized in her face. The kind of eyes that appear too large when the face around them has lost weight. She held eye contact longer than adults expected. Didn't blink quickly. Didn't look away. Boone had seen that look before. 9 years ago. On a 4-year-old boy named Dallin. His son. Who'd died in Georgia foster care while Boone was overseas on a contracted security assignment. Who'd entered the system after Boone's divorce was finalized. Who Boone had never been informed about. Not the placement change, not the emergency hospital admission, not the death certificate stamped closed by a DFCS worker managing 79 children she couldn't protect. The system had failed Dallin. And the girl standing in front of him, clutching a stuffed rabbit like it was the only thing keeping her upright, had the same look Dallin must have had. The look of someone who'd stopped expecting help. 6 seconds. That's how long Boone sat there before he moved. 6 seconds that felt like 6 minutes. Then he rotated his body, put both boots flat on the floor, and made himself smaller by sitting back. Removed all threat posture from his frame. "Nobody's making you go anywhere tonight," he said. His voice was low. Steady. The kind of voice that doesn't make promises it can't keep. Rue's right hand tightened on the rabbit. Her left hand moved, automatic, unconscious, to cover her right forearm. Boone caught the motion. Saw what she was covering. 4 parallel linear marks. Belt buckle imprint pattern. Approximately 2 weeks old. He didn't react. Didn't let his face change. just kept his eyes on hers. "What's your name?" "Rue." "Rue, I'm Boone. I need you to trust me for about the next 10 minutes. Can you do that?" She didn't answer right away. Her gaze flicked past him, toward the restaurant entrance, toward the windows that looked out on the parking lot, toward the hallway she'd just walked down from the bathroom, checking exits, calculating time. "After that," Boone said quietly, "you don't have to trust anyone you don't choose." Rue looked back at him, held his gaze for 3 seconds, then nodded once. Boone slid his sweet tea across the table. Not pushed, just available. He picked up his phone. What Boone didn't know yet, what he wouldn't know for another 47 minutes, was that the message on the bathroom mirror wasn't Rue's first attempt that night. It was her 5th, 47 minutes earlier. Rue had left the Thornton house at 6:52 p.m. Walked, scuff drag, across Quarry Bend Drive, through the parking lot of the strip mall on Highway 138, past the Thai restaurant and the dollar store, and the real estate office with the magnetic signs on the sedan doors. She'd tried the real estate agents first. 2 of them. A man and a woman, finishing a post-showing debrief in the parking lot. HOA community mailers on their dashboards, phones pressed to their ears. Rue had approached the woman directly, used her name from the lanyard clipped to her blazer. "Excuse me, Miss Gentry." The woman had glanced at her, held up one finger. 1 sec. Turned away. Got into the car. The man drove without looking up. Rue had watched the sedan pull onto Highway 138, waited until the taillights disappeared. Then kept walking. Rejection 1. She'd known she was dismissible. She just hadn't known she was invisible. The second attempt had been Dr. Hewitt Crane. Off duty, picking up takeout from the Thai place 2 doors down. Rue had recognized him from the Hospital Ethics Committee photo on the Rockdale Medical Center website. She'd looked it up on the school library computer 3 weeks ago, back when she still thought doctors were people who helped. She'd stopped him directly, stood in front of him, made him see her. "Sir, I need help." Dr. Crane had stopped, looked at her, really looked, at her arms, at her cheekbone, at her weight, and then he'd said, "You should call your parents. You should be at home on a school night." Rue had told him she didn't have parents. He'd told her she looked fine, that the shelter on Milstead had intake until 9. He had not asked her name. He had not asked her age. He'd walked into the Thai restaurant, picked up his order, and left. Rejection 2. A medical professional had looked directly at her and categorized her as a logistics problem, not a child in danger. The third attempt, Junior League volunteers, 5 women in matching coral shirts leaving a donation event at the community rec center across the parking lot. Rue had approached 2 of them, told them everything in 4 sentences, asked them to call someone. One woman had pulled out her phone, called the DFCS 24-hour line, got a recording, got routed to a non-emergency intake message. Another woman had called the Conyers Police non-emergency line, got put on hold. While she was on hold, their event organizer had come out, said they needed to load the van. The woman on hold had looked at Rue, said, "Someone's coming." Then they'd left. No one was coming. No report was logged. Rejection. 3. The system had failed Rue and the women simultaneously. Neither side knew it yet. The 4th attempt was the worst one. Chester Boatwright, 63. Volunteer parking lot security at Conyers Faith Assembly. Moonlighting as restaurant security at Millbrook on Tuesday nights. Rue had recognized him from Randall Thornton's front row attendance at Sunday services. Chester knew her name, knew her situation, knew Randall. When Rue had approached him near the restaurant entrance, Chester had appeared sympathetic, asked her name, confirmed it was Rue Calloway, said he'd get someone to help. Then he'd stepped away and called Randall Thornton's cell phone. "Hey, Randall, your foster girl is out here at Millbrook. Looks like she got turned around. Yeah. You want I should hold her here till you come?" Rejection. 4. Chester believed he was doing the right thing. He was returning a child to her guardian, doing his civic duty, helping a good man who'd taken in a troubled kid and was trying his best. He had no idea he'd just delivered Rue's predator directly to her. Randall was on his way, 9 to 14 minutes, depending on traffic. And Rue was out of options, so she'd walked into Millbrook Family Steakhouse, headed to the bathroom, written "help" on the mirror in the last of her lip gloss, and then she'd walked 34 feet across the restaurant floor to a corner booth where a man in a Hell's Angels patch was eating alone. She didn't know his name. She didn't know if he'd help. She just knew he was the last person left to ask. Boone's phone was already to his ear. 1 ring. 2 rings. Yeah. The voice on the other end was gravel and cigarettes. Calhoun Ironside, chapter president, 51 years old, former CPS intake worker for 6 years before he quit in disgust. Boone didn't explain. He just said the location and the time. "Millbrook Family Steakhouse, Highway 138, now." 3 seconds of silence on the line. Maybe 4. "How many do you need?" "All of them." The call ended. That was the whole conversation. Boone set the phone face down on the table, looked at Rue. She was still standing, still holding the rabbit, still covering her right forearm with her left hand. "Sit down," Boone said quietly. Rue didn't move. "You're safe," Boone said. "Sit." Rue sat. Not in the booth, on the very edge of the bench seat, back straight, knees together, both feet flat on the floor. Ready to run. Boone didn't reach for her, didn't lean forward, just kept his posture open, non-threatening, present. "You want to tell me what happened?" Rue's gaze flicked to the entrance again, then back to Boone. "My foster dad doesn't let me eat unless I finish everything on the list," she said. "I can never finish everything on the list." Boone's jaw tightened. He didn't interrupt. "He uses his belt," Rue continued, voice still quiet. "Factual. The buckle part. My arms mostly. But 3 weeks ago he used his fist and I fell and my foot doesn't work right now." She said it the way someone recites a grocery list. No emotion, just information. Boone's hands were very still on the table. "How long have you been there?" 9 months. "And before that?" 3 other houses, 22 months total." Boone nodded once, didn't break eye contact. "You try to tell anyone?" Rue's laugh was small and bitter, and about 40 years too old for a 13-year-old. "I told my PE teacher 8 weeks ago. She filed a report. My caseworker called my foster dad. He gave them a note from his doctor friend. Case closed." "You try again?" "I called the hotline myself 5 weeks ago. Same caseworker got assigned. He came to the house. Randall knew he was coming. I was coached. Caseworker said I seemed adjusted." "Third time?" "Neighbor called the police 3 weeks ago. Heard me screaming. 2 officers came. Randall answered the door in his basketball coach shirt. I said I had a meltdown. They left." Boone's voice was very quiet when he spoke. "And tonight?" Rue reached into the pocket of her too large shirt, pulled out a folded Millbrook Steakhouse napkin, placed it on the table between them. "I heard him on the phone 6 weeks ago," she said. "He said my name. Then he said the name of the last kid who was here. Carlin. He said Carlin didn't cooperate. I wrote down the address, he said. The one on the mirror, that was for anyone. This one's for you." Boone unfolded the napkin. Written in careful block letters. Carlin Webb, August 2021 to March 2022. Died. Cardiac arrhythmia. Congenital condition. $163,400. Insurance payout. Executor. Randall Thornton. Boone read it twice, then looked up at Rue. "Where'd you get this information?" I remembered what he said, looked up the obituary at the school library, found the probate filing online. It's public record. 13 years old, 67 pounds, and she'd done her own investigation because no one else would. Boone's phone buzzed. A text. En route. 12 minutes. He showed Rue the screen. "They're coming," he said. For the first time in 22 months, Rue believed someone. Randall Thornton pulled into the Millbrook parking lot at 8:09 p.m., 11 minutes from Chester's call. He was driving his 2023 Ram 1500 Limited, the one he'd bought with Rue's foster stipend deposits, financed at $634 per month, justified in his mind as transportation necessary for the child's care. He parked near the entrance, turned off the engine, checked his reflection in the rearview mirror. Hair trimmed, clean-shaved. Rockdale Youth Athletic Association quarter zip. Pressed khakis. The face of a man who coached basketball and organized blood drives and built houses for Habitat for Humanity. The face of a man who had nothing to hide. He got out of the truck, walked toward the restaurant entrance with the unhurried pace of someone arriving to pick up a child who'd simply gotten confused. Not fleeing, just turned around. Chester was waiting by the door. "She's inside," Chester said. "Corner booth, with some biker." Randall's expression didn't change. "Appreciate you calling, Chester." "No problem. You want me to—" "I've got it from here." Randall pushed open the door. Boone saw him coming. 6'1". Athletic build. Quarter zip with a youth sports logo. The walk of a man who expected compliance. The smile of someone who'd practiced it in mirrors. Randall's gaze swept the restaurant. Found Rue in the corner booth. Found Boone sitting across from her. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, the two men made eye contact. Randall's smile widened. Warm. Paternal. Concerned. Boone's expression didn't change at all. Randall approached the booth, stopped 5 feet away, gave Rue a look that was equal parts relief and gentle disappointment. "Rue, sweetheart, you had us worried." His voice was measured, kind, the voice of a father who'd been searching for a lost child and was simply glad she was safe. Rue didn't move, didn't look at him. Her right hand tightened on the rabbit. Randall turned his attention to Boone, extended his hand. "Randall Thornton, I'm Rue's foster father. I can't thank you enough for keeping an eye on her. She has some challenges, gets disoriented sometimes. We're working through it." Boone didn't shake his hand, didn't stand, didn't move at all. Just looked at Randall with the kind of stillness that makes most men deeply uncomfortable. "She's not going with you," Boone said quietly. Randall's smile faltered, just for a second, then recovered. "I understand how this might look," Randall said. But I'm her legal guardian. I have the paperwork in the truck if you need to see it. She's been through a lot. Multiple placements, behavioral issues, some trauma history. Sometimes she says things that aren't accurate. She said you lock her in the basement, Boone said. She said you use a belt, buckle end. She said there was a boy before her, Carlin Webb, died while you were his guardian. Insurance payout, $163,400. Randall's face went very still. Not angry, not defensive. Still. The smile was completely gone now. I don't know what she told you, Randall said quietly, but you're interfering in a state-supervised placement. That's a legal issue you don't want. Boone's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Didn't pick it up, just read the notification. Parking lot. 23 present. More coming. Boone looked back at Randall. You're right, Boone said. I don't want a legal issue. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to step outside. You're going to wait in the parking lot. And you're going to let the proper authorities handle this. I am the proper authority, Randall said. Not anymore. What Randall didn't know, what he wouldn't understand until he stepped into the parking lot and saw the motorcycles forming up in disciplined rows, was that Calhoun Ironside had made 12 phone calls in 11 minutes. 3 to the Atlanta Metro chapter, 4 to the Gainesville chapter, 5 to individual members who owed him personally. By 8:15 p.m., 23 motorcycles were parked in the Millbrook lot. By 8:47 p.m., that number would be 191. Gravel arrived first. 46 years old. Combat medic. 2 tours Iraq. Current EMT certification. The first person to examine Rue after Boone secured her. He walked into Millbrook at 8:12 p.m. Didn't announce himself. Just moved through the restaurant like he'd been called to a scene, which, in a way, he had. Boone stood, stepped aside. Let Gravel into the booth. Gravel sat across from Rue. Didn't touch her. Didn't crowd her. Just looked. Hi, Rue. My name's Gravel. I'm a medic. Boone called me because I'm better at this part than he is. Can I ask you some questions? Rue nodded. How much do you weigh? 67 pounds. Gravel's jaw tightened. He didn't let it show in his voice. How much did you weigh when you went to live with Mr. Thornton? 89. 9 months ago? Yes. Gravel pulled out his phone, opened a calculator app. Did the math in his head first, then confirmed it on screen. 22 pounds lost. In 9 months. For a 13-year-old girl. He put the phone on speaker, dialed a number. A woman's voice answered. Rockdale County Health Department, night intake. This is Gravel. EMT certification. Charlie 7491. I'm calling to report a pediatric malnutrition case requiring immediate assessment. Female, 13 years old, current weight 67 pounds, 22-pound loss over 9 months in supervised foster placement. Visible contusions, suspected untreated fracture left metatarsal, belt buckle patterning on right forearm. I'm requesting emergency intake authorization. Silence on the line. Sir, I need the child's name and current guardian information. Gravel looked at Rue. She nodded. Rue Calloway. Current guardian, Randall Thornton, 523 Quarry Bend Drive, Conyers. More silence. Then, we'll have an intake coordinator at the main facility in 20 minutes. Can you transport? Affirmative. Bring all available documentation. Gravel ended the call. Looked at Rue. We're going to get you checked out properly, he said. That okay with you? Rue looked at Boone. Boone nodded. Okay. Rue said quietly. Gravel stood, looked past Boone to where Randall was still standing near the booth, 5 feet back, face carefully neutral. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step outside." "I'm her legal guardian," Randall said again. "Not for the next 20 minutes, you're not." Cinder arrived at 8:19 p.m. 39 years old. Former Rockdale County Sheriff's detective. 18 years on the force. Left after the 3rd case he flagged was closed without follow-up. He knew every procedural gap in the county's evidence chain. He also knew exactly where the amended guardianship filing was physically located. Rockdale County Magistrate Court. Clerk's Annex. 3rd floor. File cabinet marked Probate Pending. He was there by 8:34 p.m. The clerk's office was closed. The building was locked. Cinder made 2 phone calls. The first was to Judge Althea Moss, who'd signed emergency protective orders for him 6 times during his tenure as a detective, and trusted him enough to answer her personal cell at 8:36 p.m. on a Tuesday. The second was to the county clerk, who arrived at the building at 8:51 p.m. with keys and a very clear understanding that this was not optional. By 9:03 p.m., Cinder had the file. Cinder spread the documents across the hood of his motorcycle. Boone, Gravel, and Calhoun stood in a semicircle under the parking lot lights. Randall was 50 feet away, leaning against his truck, arms crossed, watching. Cinder opened the folder. The first page was the amended guardianship petition. Filed 11 weeks ago. Standard language. Randall Thornton requesting extended legal guardianship of minor child Rue Calloway, including fiduciary authority over estate and benefit administration. Simple enough. Cinder almost set it aside. The second page stopped him. Estate inventory, attached to the guardianship petition. Carolyn Calloway. Estate. Deceased 22 months prior. Life insurance policy, $127,800. Property interest, Jasper County, Georgia, $91,500. Total estate value, $219,300. Beneficiary, Rue Calloway, minor. Proposed fiduciary, Randall Thornton, guardian. Cinder went back to the first page. Read it again. The guardianship petition had been filed 3 weeks before Rue's most severe beating. 3 weeks before her metatarsal fracture. 3 weeks before Randall escalated from belt to fist. The timing wasn't coincidental. He filed for control of her estate, Cinder said quietly. Then he started breaking bones. Calhoun's voice was flat. Keep going. The third page was bank statements. Thornton household account, 9 months of deposits. Social Security survivor benefit, Rue's mother, $1,247 per month. DFCS, foster stipend, $1,850 per month. Total monthly deposits from Rue, $3,097. Withdrawals over the same 9 months. RAM, $1,500 down payment, $8,400 Caribbean cruise, February. $7,850 LG. Home theater system, $4,370. Miscellaneous personal expenses, $3,193. Total frivolous spending, $23,813. Estimated monthly expenditure on Rue, based on itemized receipts attached, $340. Net monthly extraction, $2,757. Cinder set the page face down on the hood. He needed a moment. Because if these 3 pages said what he thought they said, then Rue's situation wasn't just abuse. It was a business model. And businesses scale. He turned to page 4. The 4th page was an email. Unsent, found in Randall's laptop during a warrant search that would happen in approximately 4 hours. But Cinder didn't know that yet. What he knew was that someone, likely DFCS investigator Gerald Pruitt, who'd been copied on the guardianship filing, had forwarded this document to Judge Moss as part of a supplemental evidence packet 30 minutes ago. The email was dated 6 weeks prior. From Randall Thornton, Jarvis Cummings, Esquire, Estate Attorney. Subject, Callaway Estate. Timeline. Date, February 27th, 2026. Jarvis. Once the visit clears, we move on the Callaway property. The caseworker is scheduled for April 21st. Pruitt has 87 active cases. He's not going to look closely. The girl's situation won't be a factor much longer. I'll need the disbursement paperwork ready to file the day after approval. Same structure as the Webb estate. Same probate judge, if possible. R. Cinder read it twice. Then he looked at Calhoun. The girl's situation won't be a factor much longer, Cinder said quietly. Calhoun didn't respond, just turned and walked toward Randall's truck. Norma Jean Bickle arrived at the Millbrook parking lot at 8:47 p.m. 41 years old. Neighbor at 521. Quarry Bend Drive for 6 years. The woman who'd called Conyers PD 3 weeks ago after hearing extended screaming from the Thornton basement. She'd been afraid to come forward before. She wasn't afraid anymore. Norma Jean had lived on Quarry Bend Drive since 2020, raised 2 kids in the house next to the Thorntons, knew Randall from the neighborhood association, knew Darlene from the PTA. She'd always thought they were nice people. Until 9 months ago, when Rue arrived. The first time Norma Jean had seen Rue, the girl was standing in the Thornton driveway at 6:18 a.m. on a Saturday in August, wearing pajamas, barefoot, carrying a trash bag to the curb. Norma Jean had waved. Rue hadn't waved back, just set the bag down and went back inside. Fast, like she was on a clock. The second time was 3 weeks later. School bus stop. Rue in a long-sleeve shirt in 90-degree heat. Norma Jean had noticed because every other kid was in shorts and t-shirts. The third time was October. Norma Jean had been pulling into her driveway when she'd heard it. A sound. Not a scream. Not yet. A sound like someone trying very hard not to scream, coming from the Thornton basement. She'd heard it 6 times between October and March. Every time she'd convinced herself it was something else. A TV show, a video game. Teenagers being dramatic. Until March 18th. 9:14 p.m. The sound was different, louder, longer, desperate. Norma Jean had called 911. 2 officers had responded. Knocked on the Thornton door. Randall had answered in his basketball polo. Calm, cooperative, concerned. The officers had asked to speak to Rue. Rue had come upstairs, said she'd had a meltdown, said she was sorry for worrying the neighbor. The officers had left. No report filed. No follow-up. Norma Jean had stood at her living room window that night and watched the police car drive away. She'd felt something she couldn't name. Not quite guilt. Not quite fear. The knowledge that she'd tried. And trying hadn't been enough. so she'd stopped trying. But she'd started writing things down. Dates, times, what she'd heard. In a spiral notebook. In her kitchen drawer. Never thrown away. Now she stood in the Millbrook parking lot with that notebook in her hands. Calhoun took it, read the first page. October 12th, 8:43 p.m., crying from basement, lasted 14 minutes. October 19th, 9:07 p.m., screaming, called out for mom. 8 minutes, November 3rd, 7:52 p.m., banging sounds, then quiet. November 17th, 6:30 a.m., saw Rue taking trash out, limping. The entries continued, 31 pages. Norma Jean's hands were shaking as she spoke. "I knew something was wrong," she said. Her voice broke on the word knew. I didn't want to be the one who made it worse. I thought if I called again and they didn't do anything, he'd know it was me. And then what would happen to her?" Calhoun closed the notebook. "You're the one who called the police," he said. "Yes." "You documented everything." "Yes." "You were afraid." Norma Jean nodded. Couldn't meet his eyes. "You did more than most people would have," Calhoun said quietly. "And what you just handed me is evidence. Thank you." Earl Wayne Duggar had been the mail carrier for Quarry Bend Drive for 11 years. 63 years old. Delivered mail 6 days a week. Knew every house, every dog, every family. He'd watched Rue decline over 9 months. Earl Wayne's route included 47 houses. He knew which residents tipped at Christmas, which ones had packages that needed signatures, which ones would chat on the porch for 20 minutes if you let them. The Thorntons had always been polite. Randall always waved. Darlene always said thank you. Earl Wayne had never had a reason to think twice about them. The first time Earl Wayne had noticed Rue, she'd been standing on the porch waiting for the mail. September. Still warm. She'd been wearing a long-sleeve shirt. He'd handed her the stack. Mostly junk mail and a DFCS envelope. She'd taken it, said thank you, turned to go inside. And he'd seen it, the back of her right arm, where the sleeve had ridden up. A bruise, dark purple, thumb-sized, like someone had grabbed her. Hard. Earl Wayne had almost said something. Almost. But she'd pulled the sleeve down. Quickly. Automatically. And gone inside before he could find the words. The second time was November. She'd come to the mailbox herself. Mid-afternoon. No school. Earl Wayne had asked if she was feeling okay. She'd said yes. But she'd lost weight. Visible weight. Her face had changed. Eyes too large. Cheeks hollow. He'd noticed. He'd said nothing. The third time was February, coldest week of the year. Rue at the bus stop in flip-flops. No coat. Earl Wayne had seen her from the mail truck, watched her get on the bus, watched the bus pull away. He'd driven to the next house, delivered the mail, and felt ashamed of himself for the rest of the day. Earl Wayne stood in the parking lot now, hat in his hands, looking at Calhoun like a man confessing a sin. "I saw her every week," he said. "Every week for 9 months. I watched her get smaller. I watched her stop making eye contact. I never saw her outside in warm weather without long sleeves. I never saw her run." He paused, swallowed hard. "And I never asked her if she was okay." Calhoun didn't respond right away, just let the silence sit. Did you document anything? Calhoun asked finally. No, sir. Did you call anyone? No, sir. Why not? Earl Wayne looked at the ground. Because I wasn't sure, he said, and I thought, if I was wrong, if I made trouble for a family that didn't deserve it. He didn't finish the sentence. Calhoun nodded slowly. You're here now, he said. That counts. By 9:14 p.m., 47 motorcycles were in the Millbrook parking lot. By 9:31 p.m., 93. By 9:47 p.m., 191. They didn't arrive together. They arrived in waves. Small groups, pairs, individuals. Each one found a space, parked, killed the engine, got off the bike, and stood. Not blocking the restaurant, not blocking the road, not on the Thornton property. Just present. The sound started as a rumble, built to a roar, then cut off, engine by engine, until only silence remained. Heavy, deliberate. Silence. 191 men, all wearing their cuts, all standing in formation. Not a protest fueled by anger, a peaceful stand. Randall Thornton looked at the motorcycles. Then he looked at his phone. Then he made a call. Jarvis, it's Randall. I need you at the magistrate's court tomorrow morning. First thing. Yes, there's been a complication. Cinder had pulled one more document from the file. Not from Randall's folder. From a separate file, cross-referenced during the probate search. Carlin Webb Duo-B, March 14, 2012. DOD, March 22, 2022. Age at death, 9. The death certificate listed cause, cardiac arrhythmia secondary to pre-existing congenital condition. The congenital condition had been diagnosed by Dr. Fenton Marsh 3 weeks before Carlin's death. Dr. Marsh had no record of Carlin prior to that appointment. No referral. Walk-in diagnosis. Dr. Fenton Marsh played golf every Thursday with Randall Thornton. The estate inventory attached to Carlin's guardianship file showed grandmother's estate, $163,400. Executor, Randall Thornton, appointed 6 weeks pre-death. Disbursement, complete 4 months post-death. Carlin's intake. Weight, 74 pounds. Carlin's weight at death, 51 pounds. Time in Thornton care, 7 months. DFCS had closed Carlin's case file 3 weeks before his death. Notation, stable placement, no active concerns. Signed by Gerald Pruitt, the same caseworker, the same file language. Calhoun read the Carlin Webb file twice. Then he walked across the parking lot to where Gerald Pruitt had just arrived, called by Judge Moss, ordered to appear, looking like a man who'd aged 10 years in 2 hours. Pruitt was 38 years old. D.F.C. Case Permanency Specialist. 87 active cases. The state standard was 15 to 17. Pruitt hadn't had a caseload under 60 in 4 years. Calhoun handed him the Carlin Webb file. "Read page 4, Calhoun said. Pruitt read it. His face went gray. I didn't... He stopped. Started again. I had 87 cases. I couldn't... I know, Calhoun said quietly. And he did know, because Calhoun had been Gerald Pruitt once, different county, different decade, same impossible mathematics, 71 children, one person, no supervisor support. One of those children had died. Calhoun had quit 6 weeks later. He looked at Pruitt now and saw a man destroyed. Pruitt had 3 unread voicemails from Rue's school on his phone. He hadn't had time to listen. He hadn't known. And that didn't matter. Because Carlin Webb was still dead. And Rue Calloway had been 9 minutes away from the same fate. Pruitt sat down on the curb outside the DFCS building. He didn't stand back up for a long time. I have to stop here for a second. Because when I first read Gerald Pruitt's file, when I saw that number, 87, I had to put the research down and just sit with it. 87 children. One person. The state of Georgia's standard is 15 to 17 cases per worker. Gerald Pruitt had 87. His supervisor knew. There are 3 internal memos on file about it. The supervisor wrote them, submitted them to the county director, requested emergency staffing support. Nothing changed. So Gerald Pruitt kept working, kept trying, kept drowning, and children kept falling through the gaps. I don't know if you felt that too. The specific horror of a system that's not broken. It's working exactly as it was funded to work. But I think you might have. Randall Thornton was arrested at 10:17 p.m. in the Millbrook parking lot, with 191 witnesses. He was fixing the license plate on his truck when the officers arrived. The plate had been loose. Rattling. He'd been tightening the screws with a Phillips head from the glove box. The same hands that had written the email about Rue's situation. The same hands that had held the belt. He looked up when the officers called his name. Mild expression. Like a man interrupted during a normal task. Because to him, this was normal. Officer Chen read him his rights in the driveway. Randall Thornton, you're under arrest for felony child abuse, financial exploitation of a minor, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. Randall didn't resist, didn't argue, just set the screwdriver down carefully on the tailgate. I'd like to call my attorney, he said. You'll have that opportunity, Officer Chen said. They cuffed him, hands behind his back, face against the side of the truck. 191 men watched in complete silence. Charges filed. Felony child abuse, aggravated, pattern over 9 months. Financial exploitation of a dependent, Class B felony, fraud, guardian fiduciary violation, conspiracy to commit murder, based on email evidence plus Carlin Webb pattern. Bail, $750,000. Randall's attorney arrived at the courthouse the next morning at 8:04 a.m. He was prepared to argue that the guardianship filing gave Randall legal authority. Cinder was waiting with a folder. Inside, the Carlin Webb death certificate, the pediatrician's note, the probate filing dated 6 weeks before Carlin died, and the email. The girl's situation won't be a factor much longer. The attorney read it. He went quiet. He excused himself. He did not come back. Nobody cheered. These weren't men who cheered. They just looked at each other with the particular exhaustion of people who'd seen too much and fixed too little, and felt for once like the scales had shifted. Not balanced. Not healed. Just shifted. Rue was in the Rockdale County Health Department by 10:43 p.m. Emergency intake. Full medical workup. BMI 13.9. Diagnosis: severe malnutrition untreated stress fracture, left metatarsal, 3 weeks old, multiple contusions in various stages of healing, linear scarring consistent with repeated belt strikes. Dr. Agnes Tulliver's assessment: at current weight and stress level, we're looking at 3 to 4 weeks before organ compromise begins. The cardiac risk is not theoretical. Rue had been 9 minutes away from going back to that house, and 13 days away from a caseworker visit that would have cleared Randall's guardianship amendment, cleared his access to $219,300, cleared his path to making Rue's situation not a factor, the way Carlin's situation had stopped being a factor in March 2022. Boone stood in the hospital corridor, watched through the window as Dr. Tulliver examined Rue. Watched Rue answer questions. Watched her hold Benny against her chest. Calhoun stood beside him. "You did good," Calhoun said quietly. Boone didn't answer right away. "I was 4 hours late," he finally said. "For my son. 4 hours. He died before I got stateside." "You weren't late for her." Boone nodded. Didn't say anything else. Didn't need to. Floyd Jr. Stubbs arrived at 11:23 p.m. 71 years old. Owner of Stubbs Lawn and Feed, 0.3 miles from the Thornton house. He'd been closing up the shop when Calhoun called. He came carrying a photograph. Floyd Jr. had owned the feed store for 43 years. Sold seed and fertilizer and work gloves to every house within 5 miles. Knew most of the kids in the neighborhood by name. They'd ride their bikes over after school, buy a Sprite or a candy bar with quarters they'd saved, sit on the bench outside and talk about nothing in particular. Floyd Jr. liked the company. Carlin Webb had been one of those kids. 9 years old, blonde hair, skinny, always polite. Always said, "Sir." He'd come in on his bike twice a week during the fall of 2021. October, November, December. Always ordered the same thing, Sprite and a pack of peanut butter crackers. Floyd Jr. had started keeping them behind the counter. One afternoon in January 2022, Floyd Jr. had taken a photo. Nothing special. Just Carlin sitting on the bench outside, holding his Sprite, smiling at the camera. Floyd Jr. had printed it, put it in a frame on the shelf behind the register. He didn't know why, just seemed like a nice thing to do. Then Carlin stopped coming. February. No visits. March. Still nothing. Floyd Jr. had assumed the family moved. Kids did that sometimes. Then in April 2022, Randall Thornton had walked into the store, bought flower seed, $50 order. "For the church garden," he said. "Memorial planting." Floyd Jr. had rung it up, made small talk, asked how things were going. Randall had mentioned, casual, like it was nothing, that his foster son had passed away. Tragic. Congenital heart condition. Undiagnosed. These things happen. Floyd Jr. had gone very still. "Carlin?" he'd asked. "Yes, you knew him?" "He came in here all the time." Randall had nodded, sympathetic. Said it had been hard on everyone. Said the family was doing their best to move forward. He'd paid in cash. Taken the seed. Left. Floyd Jr. had looked at the photo on the shelf. Carlin. Alive. Smiling. Holding a Sprite. And he'd kept it there. For 4 years. Without knowing why. Now Floyd Jr. stood in the parking lot and handed the photo to Calhoun. "I never forgot that," Floyd Jr. said quietly. "Randall came in and bought flowers. After the boy died. He didn't look sad. He didn't look anything. Just a man buying seed. Calhoun looked at the photograph. Carlin Webb. 9 years old. Blonde hair. Smiling. Before. He turned and walked to where Rue was sitting in the back of Gravel's truck, wrapped in a blanket someone had pulled from their saddlebag. "Rue," Calhoun said gently. "Do you know what Carlin looked like?" Rue shook her head. "I only heard his name, on the phone. I never saw a picture." Calhoun handed her the photograph. Rue looked at it for a long time. "He looks happy," she said finally, voice very small. "He was," Floyd Jr. said. "When I knew him, he was." Rue held the photo against her chest, right next to Benny. "Can I keep this?" "Yes, ma'am," Floyd Jr. said. "I think he'd want you to have it." Myrtle Fontenot had taught Sunday school at Conyers Faith Assembly for 11 years, 47 years old. Patient, kind. The kind of teacher kids remembered decades later. She'd taught Rue for 3 months, September through November 2025. Then Rue had been removed from the program for behavioral issues. Myrtle had taught the middle school class every Sunday at 9:30 a.m., 12 to 15 kids. Lessons on scripture, discussions about faith and community, and doing the right thing even when it was hard. Rue had been quiet, sat in the back. Didn't raise her hand often, but she'd been present, attentive, polite. Myrtle had liked her. It was mid-September when Myrtle first noticed the bruise. Rue had reached across the table for a pencil. Her sleeve had ridden up. Just for a second. Yellow-green. Oval-shaped. On the inside of her left forearm. Myrtle had started paying closer attention after that. October. Long sleeves every week. Even on warm Sundays. November. Rue had lost weight, visible weight, her collarbone sharp beneath her shirt collar. And one Sunday in early November, Rue had fallen asleep during the lesson. Just fallen asleep. Head down on the table, like she hadn't slept in days. Myrtle had let her rest, hadn't woken her. After class, she'd gone to the church's family services liaison, a volunteer coordinator named Douglas Crett, who happened to be Chester Boatwright's brother-in-law. Myrtle had explained what she'd seen, asked if someone could check on Rue, make sure everything was okay at home. Douglas had told her it was being handled. 2 weeks later, Rue had been removed from the Sunday school program. Darlene Thornton had called Myrtle directly, said Rue was having behavioral problems, said the church environment was overstimulating for her, said they'd be pursuing other faith education options. Myrtle had never seen Rue again. Myrtle stood in the parking lot now, hands clasped in front of her, looking at Calhoun like a woman who'd been carrying something heavy for a long time. "I raised it," she said. "I told Douglas exactly what I saw. He said it was being handled, and then 2 weeks later she was gone." "Did you follow up?" Calhoun asked. "I tried. Douglas told me the family had requested privacy, told me I was overstepping, told me that if I continued to press the issue, it could create complications." "Complications for who?" "For the church," Myrtle said quietly. Randall was a major donor, Habitat crew leader, blood drive coordinator. Douglas said we couldn't afford to alienate families like that based on unsubstantiated concerns. Calhoun's jaw tightened. "So you stopped?" "Yes." Myrtle's voice broke. "I stopped, and I've thought about her every single Sunday since." Calhoun was quiet for a moment. "You tried," he finally said. "You saw something and you said something. That's more than most people do. It wasn't enough. No, Calhoun agreed. But you're here now. And that testimony, what Douglas said, what the church did, that goes in the file. Norma Jean Bickle didn't sleep that night. At 6:47 a.m. on Wednesday morning, she walked to the end of her driveway, waited for Earl Wayne's mail truck. When he pulled up, she handed him an envelope. "For the Gazette," she said. "Letter to the editor." Earl Wayne took it, didn't open it, just nodded. "I'll make sure they get it," he said. The letter ran 2 days later. Front page. Letter to the editor. Re. Thornton arrest and community responsibility. I am the neighbor who called 911 on March 18th. I heard a child screaming. 2 officers responded. They left without filing a report. I convinced myself I'd done everything I could. I was wrong. I heard that child 6 times between October and March. I documented it. I did nothing else. Randall Thornton is in custody now. That is justice. But justice is not the same as accountability. And I am accountable. I'm writing this because I know I'm not the only one who saw something, who heard something, who convinced themselves it wasn't their business. We were wrong, all of us. I'm naming myself because silence is what protected him. And I'm done protecting monsters by being quiet. Norma Jean Bickle, Quarry Bend Drive. The letter was shared 843 times in the first 24 hours. 17 more people came forward with information about the Thornton household. 4 more came forward with information about other placements in Rockdale County. The state launched an audit. Rockdale County DFCS issued a statement on Thursday. It was 3 paragraphs, printed on letterhead, signed by the county director who'd ignored 3 staffing memos. The Department of Family and Children's Services takes all allegations of abuse seriously. An internal review is underway. We are committed to the safety and well-being of all children in our care. DFCS will cooperate fully with law enforcement and implement any necessary procedural improvements. Cold. Bureaucratic. Too late. Boone read it once, folded it, put it in his cut pocket, saved it. Reminder of what official response looked like. Laureen Dial showed up at the Rockdale County Health Department on Friday morning. Rue's PE teacher, the one who'd filed the first DFCS report 8 weeks ago, the one who'd been warned by the school district's legal office about unauthorized disclosure of student records when she'd tried to escalate. She'd kept a log, too. Dates, times, visible injuries, weight estimates. Every time Rue had sat out during physical activity claiming she didn't feel good. 31 entries. She handed the log to Gravel at the intake desk. "I should have done more," she said. "I should have kept calling. I should have—" "You did what you could within a system that punished you for trying," Gravel said quietly. "This log is evidence." "Thank you." Laureen nodded, wiped her eyes. "Is she okay?" Laureen asked. "She will be. Can you tell her I never stopped watching? I never stopped keeping track?" "I'll tell her." The story ran in the Rockdale Gazette on Saturday. Page 3, below a story about the county budget hearing. The headline read, "Local foster parent arrested in abuse case." Rue's name was spelled wrong in the first edition. Rue Calloway. The correction ran the following Thursday. Rue was placed in emergency foster care on Wednesday, April 9th. 2026. Not a county placement. Not a DFCS placement. A private placement arranged by Calhoun through a network of vetted foster families connected to child advocacy organizations he'd worked with for 16 years. The address? 1847 Deerwood Circle, Lithonia, Georgia. The family? Marcus and Joelle Pritchard, both in their 50s. Empty nesters. Licensed foster parents for 12 years. No DFCS violations. No red flags. 3 bedrooms. Rue got her own room. A real bed. Clean sheets. A dresser. A window that opened. A lock on the inside of the door. Not the outside. Marcus was a retired high school counselor. Joelle worked part-time as a librarian. They'd fostered 19 children over 12 years, 17 of them still called on birthdays. Rue moved in on Thursday. Knotwood drove her, carried her single bag inside, placed Benny on the bed. The rabbit had been washed. The gray was gone. The red bow had been retied. Not by the brothers. By Norma Jean Bickle, who'd asked if she could. Rue stood in the doorway of her new room for a long time, just looking. "You okay?" Knotwood asked. "It has a window," Rue said quietly. "Yeah. And the door lock is on the inside." "Yeah." Rue sat down on the bed, picked up Benny, held him against her chest. "I can stay here?" she asked. "You can stay here," Knotwood confirmed. Rue nodded, didn't cry, just held the rabbit and looked at the window and the lock and the clean sheets. Small things. Enormous things. A GoFundMe campaign launched on Friday, April 11th. Started by Rimshot, the brother who handled media and documentation. 33 years old, very good at his job. The goal was $25,000, money for Rue's immediate needs. Clothes, school supplies, medical expenses not covered by Medicaid, therapy, a college fund. It hit $25,000 in 6 hours. By Sunday, it was at $127,400. By the following Friday, $219,300. The exact amount of Rue's mother's estate, the estate Randall had tried to steal. The internet has a sense of irony sometimes. The funds were placed in a trust, managed by an independent fiduciary. Rue would have access at 18th. No one else could touch it. Emergency Protective Order, granted April 9th, 2026. Randall Thornton prohibited from any contact with Rue Calloway. Violation punishable by immediate arrest. Permanent restraining order, filed April 15th. Hearing scheduled for May 6th. Custody. Full legal custody transferred to the Georgia Division of Family and Children Services, with Marcus and Joelle Pritchard named as designated caregivers. Reviewed every 6 months. Long-term goal, adoption, if Rue wanted it. Randall's guardianship petition, withdrawn. Estate control transferred to an independent probate attorney selected by the court. Sentencing. Randall Thornton's trial was scheduled for September 2026. Bail set at $750,000. Randall couldn't make it. He stayed in Rockdale County Detention Center pending trial. Dr. Agnes Tulliver became Rue's primary care physician. Treatment plan, nutrition rehabilitation, high-calorie meal plan, monitored weight gain, vitamin supplementation. Goal? Return to healthy weight range within 6 to 8 months. Orthopedic care, left metatarsal stress fracture, walking boot for 4 weeks, physical therapy twice weekly, monitored healing via X-ray at weeks 2, 4, and 8. Dental, full exam scheduled for April 23rd. 2 cavities identified. Treated May 1st. No further issues. Therapy. Trauma-informed counseling twice weekly with Dr. Nina Orsini, child psychologist, specializing in foster care trauma. Sessions scheduled for Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 p.m. By the end of April, Rue had gained 4 pounds. By the end of May, the walking boot was off. By the end of June, she smiled at a joke Joelle made during breakfast and didn't immediately look guilty about it. Small victories, important ones. Gravel drove Rue to every medical appointment for the first 6 weeks. Picked her up at 3:45 p.m. Drove her to Rockdale Medical or the physical therapy clinic or Dr. Orsini's office. Waited in the lobby. Drove her back. Never asked how the appointment went. Just asked if she wanted to stop for ice cream after. She said yes 3 times. Cinder handled the legal paperwork. Court filings, restraining orders, evidence submissions. He knew which forms needed notarization, which needed witness signatures, which needed to be filed in triplicate. He walked Rue through every single one. Explained what it meant, why it mattered, what would happen next. She signed where he showed her. Trusted him because he'd never lied to her. Knotwood visited twice a week. Didn't ask about the abuse. Didn't ask her to talk about Randall or Darlene or the basement or the belt. Just showed up. Brought books sometimes, or a puzzle, or just sat on the porch and talked about nothing important. One Tuesday in May, he asked her what color Benny's bow had been before it started fraying. Red, Rue said. Red's a good color, Knotwood said. Yeah. That was the whole conversation. It was enough. Rimshot archived everything. Every document, every witness statement. Every photo of the help message on the bathroom mirror, taken before the Millbrook staff cleaned it. He created a digital folder, backed it up in 3 places, gave Rue a copy on a flash drive. This is your story, he said. You get to decide who sees it. You get to decide when. But it's yours. Nobody can take it away from you. Rue kept the flash drive in her dresser. Second drawer. Under her socks. Right next to Benny. The scuff drag sound was gone by the end of May. The metatarsal had healed. The walking boot had come off. Physical therapy had done its job. Rue walked differently now. Even. Steady. No drag. No hesitation. Boone noticed the first time he saw her walk across the Pritchard driveway in June. She was heading to the mailbox. Joelle had asked her to grab the mail. Normal task. Normal day. Rue had walked, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, across the gravel without a single uneven beat. Boone had been sitting on his bike in the driveway, waiting to drop off a gift card to a bookstore. Joelle had mentioned Rue liked reading. He'd watched her walk. Listened. The silence where the scuff drag used to be was louder than any sound. Rue grabbed the mail, turned, walked back. Saw Boone watching. What? She asked. Nothing, Boone said. You walk different now. Rue looked down at her feet, then back up at him. Yeah, she said. I guess I do. She didn't smile, but something in her face shifted, just a little. Relief, pride, something. Boone handed her the gift card. For books, he said. Thank you. You doing okay, Rue? She considered the question. Really considered it. I think so, she said finally. Yeah, I think I am. Boone nodded, started his bike, rode away, and for the first time in 9 years, he felt like maybe he'd done something right. This story had a villain. It had victims. What it also had, what it almost didn't have, were the people who showed up anyway. That part matters most. Somewhere in Georgia, right now, There are 412 open CPS cases with no assigned worker. 2,316 children in emergency housing with no long-term plan. 847 elderly adults in financial abuse situations that nobody has flagged yet. This story happened. It keeps happening. The last time Rue Calloway stood in the Millbrook family steakhouse was August 14th, 2026, 4 months after she'd written "help" on the bathroom mirror. She wasn't hiding this time. She was celebrating. Joelle and Marcus had taken her out for her birthday, her 14th. The first birthday in 3 years where someone had asked her what she wanted to do. She'd said, "Can we go to Millbrook?" Joelle had looked surprised. "You sure?" "Yeah," Rue had said. "I want to see it different." So they'd gone. Same restaurant, same corner booth. Boone had called ahead, asked them to keep it available. But everything about Rue was different. She weighed 91 pounds now, healthy weight for her height and age. Her face had filled out. Her hair was clean and trimmed. She wore a purple shirt, short sleeves, her choice, and jeans that actually fit. No flip-flops. Real shoes. Sneakers with laces she'd tied herself. And Benny wasn't clutched against her chest. He was sitting on the seat beside her. Present. But not armor. They'd ordered. Talked. Laughed. Rue had excused herself halfway through the meal. Walked to the bathroom. Left foot, right foot, even gait, no hesitation. Stood in front of the mirror. The same mirror where she'd written, "help," 4 months ago. Now it just showed her reflection. A girl. 14. Alive. Safe. She looked at herself for a long time. Then she went back to the table. Marcus asked if she was okay. "Yeah," Rue said. "I just wanted to see something." "What's that?" "What it looks like when I'm not scared." The legal system called it 4 counts of felony abuse, financial exploitation, fraud, and conspiracy. Boone called it something simpler: corrected. What had been done wrong had been, as much as humanly possible, made right. That's rarer than it should be. Following the Thornton arrest and subsequent media coverage, Rockdale County DFCS received 143 formal complaints about caseload management within 2 weeks. The Georgia Division of Family and Children's Services launched an audit of all Metro Atlanta counties. Average caseload per permanency specialist in Rockdale County, 71 children. State standard. 15 to 17. The audit resulted in emergency staffing allocation, 12 new caseworkers hired, 4 supervisors placed on administrative leave pending review. Gerald Pruitt's caseload was reduced from 87 to 19 within 3 weeks. He's still a caseworker. Still showing up. Still trying. GoFundMe. Total raised, $219,300. Amount distributed to Rue's Trust, $219,300. Additional donations redirected, per Rue's request, to National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, $43,000. Child Help National Child Abuse. Hotline, $38,000. Local foster parent training programs, $27,000. Conyers Faith Assembly terminated Douglas Kretz volunteer position. Issued a formal apology to Myrtle Fontenot. Implemented mandatory abuse reporting training for all volunteers and staff. Dr. Fenton Marsh's medical license was suspended pending investigation by the Georgia Composite Medical Board. Investigation outcome, September 2026. License revoked. 2 additional cases of fraudulent diagnoses identified in connection with Randall Thornton estate schemes. Norma Jean Bickle started a neighborhood watch program on Quarry Bend Drive. Not for crime, for kids. 15 neighbors signed up in the first month. Earl Wayne Duggar still delivers mail on Quarry Bend Drive. He waves to every kid he sees now, asks how they're doing, means it. Floyd Jr. Stubbs printed 3 more copies of Carlin Webb's photograph. One went to Carlin's grandmother. One went to the Rockdale County DFCS Memorial Wall, established September 2026 for children lost in care. One stayed on the shelf behind his register. Lorene Dial still teaches PE at Rue's former middle school. She still keeps a log. But now, when she files a report, she doesn't stop at one call. She escalates until someone listens. She's filed 4 reports since April. 3 resulted in removals. 1 saved a life. You've been watching for 79 minutes. That means something. People don't sit with a story this heavy unless it's touching something real. So, before I let you go, what is that thing for you? Is it the neighbor who heard screaming and convinced herself it wasn't her business? Is it the caseworker drowning under 87 cases and no support? Is it the teacher who tried to help and got warned for her trouble? Is it the system that spent more energy protecting itself than the children it was designed to serve? Or is it the girl, 13 years old, 67 pounds, out of options, who walked into a restaurant and asked one more stranger for help? Because here's what I need you to understand. You don't need 200 motorcycles to make a difference. You need one person who pays attention. One person who asks the uncomfortable question. One person who doesn't look away when looking away would be easier. Norma Jean Bickle was that person. 4 months too late. But she finally became that person. Lorene Dial was that person. Even when it cost her. Boone was that person. Because 9 years ago, no one had been that person for his son. You can be that person. Boone would tell you he's not a hero. He'd tell you he was just the first person to take Rue seriously. Think about how low that bar is. Think about how many people had already cleared it and turned away anyway. A teacher filed a report. The system dismissed it. A neighbor called the police. The police left. A child called a hotline. The same caseworker who already failed her showed up. Rue did everything right. The system failed every single time. Until she tried something the system didn't control. She asked a stranger, and the stranger said yes. There was no single moment when Rue became okay again. Recovery doesn't announce itself. But Joelle knew something had shifted. The morning Rue came downstairs and made herself breakfast without asking permission. July. Tuesday morning. Rue had woken up early, walked into the kitchen, pulled eggs and bread from the fridge, made toast and scrambled eggs, then sat down at the table and ate. Marcus had come downstairs 10 minutes later, seen the plate, the empty pan in the sink. "You make that yourself?" he'd asked. "Yeah," Rue had said. "That okay?" "Of course it's okay. It's your kitchen." Rue had looked at him, really looked. "Mine?" "Yours," Marcus confirmed. "You live here. You're allowed to be here. You're allowed to take up space." Rue had nodded slowly, gone back to eating her eggs. That small, forgettable morning. the turning point nobody photographed. Rue didn't call it healing. She called it getting her legs back under her, a physical metaphor for something that had nothing to do with her body. Boone thought that was exactly right. Some mornings were still hard. Rue would text Boone at 5:47 a.m. sometimes, not asking for anything, just checking in. "You awake?" "Yeah." "You okay?" "Yeah. Just wanted to make sure you were real. I'm real. You're safe. Go back to sleep." Okay. That was the whole system. It was enough. If you believe every child deserves someone who answers when they ask for help, subscribe to this channel right now. If this story made you think about the kid you saw yesterday, who seemed a little too quiet, share this video. If you've ever been Rue, if you've ever asked for help and been ignored, comment "I see you" below. Because I do. And so do 400,000 other people watching this right now. And if you know a Randall Thornton, someone who looks good on paper, does all the right community things, and hurts people behind closed doors, you know what to do. Call the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline, 1-800-422-4453, 24/7. Confidential. Staffed by crisis counselors who can initiate state investigations above the local caseworker level. Not call the police. This specific number. Write it down. 191 bikers showed up that night. But only one needed to. The one Rue asked. The one who said yes. Be that one. Let me explain the specific legal mechanism that almost killed Rue Calloway. It's called guardian fiduciary fraud, and it's easier to execute than most people realize. Here's how it works. When a child in foster care has an estate, inheritance from a deceased parent, life insurance payout, property interest, someone has to manage that money until the child turns 18. In many states, including Georgia, a licensed foster parent can petition the probate court to be named the child's legal guardian and fiduciary. That means they control the money. They're supposed to use it for the child's benefit. Education. Medical care. Housing. But here's the gap in the system. Oversight is minimal. As long as the guardian files annual accounting reports, most probate courts don't audit the actual expenditures. They assume the foster parent, who's already been vetted and licensed by the state, is acting in good faith. Randall Thornton spent Rue's monthly benefits on a truck, a cruise, and a home theater system. He filed paperwork every quarter showing appropriate expenditures for the minor child's care. No one checked. And when he filed for extended guardianship, that would give him control of Rue's $219,300 estate. The court was going to approve it, because on paper, he looked perfect. That's not a loophole. That's the system working exactly as it was designed, with trust instead of verification. And trust, when misplaced, kills children. 3 warning signs that guardian fiduciary fraud might be happening. First sign, a foster child who's described repeatedly by their foster parent as difficult, manipulative, or a fabricator, especially when that language shows up in official DFCS documents, but originated from the foster parent, not from professional psychological evaluation. That's narrative control. The abuser is preemptively discrediting the victim, so that when the child reports abuse, the system dismisses it as consistent with behavioral patterns. Second sign, a foster child who shows unexplained significant weight loss or who declines to remove clothing for medical exams, especially when the foster parent provides explanations without being asked. Normal parents get worried when their kid loses weight and ask the doctor what's wrong. Abusers provide a pre-packaged explanation before the doctor can form a question. Third sign, and this is the critical one. A foster parent who files for legal guardianship or estate control within 6 months of a child's placement, while simultaneously increasing isolation of the child from school and community contacts. Financial motive plus isolation tactic occurring simultaneously is the specific red flag. Because guardianship fraud requires 2 things: access to money and removal of witnesses. When you see both happening at once, that's not a coincidence. That's a plan. So what do you do if you see these signs? Don't call your local CPS office. Not first. Because if the caseworker is overwhelmed, if they're managing 87 cases like Gerald Pruitt, your call might get logged, assigned, and buried under 30 more emergencies that seem more acute. Call the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline. 1-800-422-4453. It's staffed 24/7 by professional crisis counselors who are trained to escalate above the county level when necessary. They can initiate state-level DFCS review. They can request supervisory intervention. They can bypass the Gerald Pruitt bottleneck. You don't need proof. You need a concern. That's the standard. A reasonable concern based on observable behavior.
If you see a kid losing weight, wearing long sleeves in summer, flinching at loud noises, or describing their home situation in a way that makes your gut tighten, you call. And you keep calling until someone listens. Because Rue called 3 times and got sent back 3 times. But someone else called once, from a parking lot full of motorcycles, and the system finally moved. Volume matters. Persistence matters. Outside pressure matters. You watched this story because something in it resonated. Maybe you've seen a kid at the bus stop who seemed a little too quiet. Maybe you've heard something through the wall that didn't sound right. Maybe you've convinced yourself it wasn't your business. Now you know the name of the thing you saw. Guardian fiduciary fraud. Institutional failure, narrative control, isolation tactics. Knowing the name of something is the first step to doing something about it. Rue Calloway still has Benny. She keeps him not as a reminder of what happened, but as proof that one person paying attention can change everything. Be that person. Call the hotline. Share this video. Pay attention to the kids around you, and if you see something, say something. Keep saying it. Don't stop until someone listens. Because the next Rue Calloway is out there, right now, waiting for someone to be the one who answers.